But now, I want to suggest that they're not completely engaged in a nonsensical endeavor, or they don't have to be, because that practice of now sophisticated, naive autoanthropology is not only a legitimate but a useful and interesting field, and it is a kind of anthropology. This is where you take yourself and others. Very important, not just to restrict yourself to a few. Linguists have known for a long time that they get so wrapped up in their theories that they're no longer reliable sources of linguistic intuition. Their raw, untutored intuitions have been sullied by too much theory, so they know enough to go out and ask non-linguists for their linguistic intuitions, and philosophers should certainly, philosophers engaging, I should call them anthropologists, and this particular sort of sophisticated naive anthropologists should do the same thing. They should consult more widely. But what would they get? They would get something that I think is actually very important to philosophy. They would get a sort of catalog resume of the metaphysical attitudes, the starting place, the sort of metaphysics of the manifest image, that is where we as philosophers have to start in our attempts to negotiate back and forth between the latest science and where everybody else is residing. So I think this is some useful non-Schmess work, and in fact has been part of a lot of work that I think we all admire, particularly of Wilfrid Sellars, is properly seen in this under this rubric, and also even I'm going to risk losing all the sympathies of all of you. At its best, this is what ordinary language philosophy was all about. There was some value there. I want to engage in a little extremely informal, undisciplined, sophisticated, naive autoanthropology, using ourselves as the reference. What's in your ontology? Well, tables and chairs, right? We all do tables and chairs.
Lots of them. There's lots of them.
There's lots of them, yeah. But how about, these are two fine examples, how about sakes? As in for Pete's sake and for the sake of the nation. Are there sakes? Or are there dints? Quine suggested that here we're misled by grammar. We've got these nouns. We sort of think wherever there's a noun, there's a thing. And so, do you quantify, of course, Quine's answer, do you quantify over sakes and dints? No, they're sort of fused into their idioms. So we don't have any dints or sakes. Maybe you would all agree. I mean, we might have a show of hands. How many of you think there are sakes? Not a hand. How about voices? Now, this is the case that I spent some time on way back in, I got it was 40 years ago, in Content and Consciousness, where this was my maiden effort at breaking some of the dichotomies of metaphysics and suggesting, look, there doesn't seem to be anything deeply puzzling about voices. We don't need to invent a voice-throat problem to go along with the mind-body problem. But if you stop and ask yourself just exactly what a voice is it an event, a process, a thing, a pattern of sounds? It turns out it doesn't fit in any super category at all. Well, it is sort of all by itself as a whatever it is. Are they things? What kind of things is a voice? It doesn't fit any category, and I don't think we want to have any voiceology. It's not clear how it would play in science anywhere, but it certainly.
Come on, people do it for birds. They study bird songs.
They certainly do. Oh, wait, I'm just getting warmed up here. Wait till you see some of the other ontological categories. But my point was just to sort of shape people's confidence in the whole ontological enterprise by pointing out that something as non-mysterious as a voice, nevertheless, could raise lots of what were probably artifactual problems for somebody who sat down with a knife and fork and trying to say, all right, I'm going to figure out what a voice is, and say in ontologically pristine and precise terms exactly what category of thing they are, or prove that there aren't any voices. I guess around the same time, David and Stephanie published their famous Holes dialogue, which has been oft reprinted and used, and it's a delightful exercise, and it sort of makes lots of trouble for the persnickety sort of Quinian who's not quite sure how to treat holes, whether they're real or not, and if they're real, what are they made of, and so forth. In the same vein, how about cahoots? Are there cahoots? Or how about smithereens? So it looks like we have some cases that are not really very serious, but again, they're like dints and sakes. There are these terms, and they have a certain role to play. Haircuts. What's a haircut?
No idea.
Now, the Quine famously said no entity without identity, and if you ask yourself what the identity, the temporal, spatio-temporal coordinates, and what a haircut is, it's not easy to say, which doesn't mean remember head. It's not easy to say, but that doesn't mean it would be worth sitting down and writing a doctoral dissertation on answering that question. Just worth remembering. It might not be worth doing. Especially for Don, I don't know whether dollars are real. Compare dollars to dimes. Dimes are real. They're little pieces of metal. But dollars are a different thing altogether. Dollar bills, are dollars real? Do they have a place in your ontology? Well, I don't know. I'm sort of curious to know what Don says about that. And of course, famous numbers. Still about the numbers. But the reason that I got interested was mainly I wanted to talk about beliefs and desires, and intention and stance. And one of the examples that I used to illustrate this was, or to compare it with, was whether centers of gravity. And I was delighted to find that I had philosophers saying that the trouble with this analogy was that it was so obvious that centers of gravity aren't real, too. Centers of gravity are real. And so they nicely balanced out. It's obvious to different philosophers what the ontological status of centers of gravity are. And I wanted to make it sort of a little bit harder question by saying, well, whatever centers of gravity, whether they're real or not, they are, as far as I can see, in the same metaphysical category as Dennett's lost sock center. Dennett's lost sock center is the center of the smallest sphere that can be inscribed around all the socks I've ever lost. Now, I take it that that is a precisely defined concept of exactly zero utility. But utility is not the same as reality. So if the center of gravity of that chair is real, then so is Dennett's lost sock center. One of them is an interesting and useful concept. One of them isn't, but their ontological status, it would seem to me, would have to be the same. And, although I'd be interested to see somebody who can show otherwise.